Hello, everyone. Now, I'm thinking about going back to class, and I really never thought I'd be going back to Taekwondo class. Now, Taekwondo was my first art, and I started that in 1987, the summer I turned 12. So, um, basically, what I'm going to tell you is a new Taekwondo school opened up here in that same system. And I thought, well, why don't I go over my material and polish up my forms best I can. And by doing that, it has made me realize how much I've lost by not training. So over the past couple years or so, I haven't actually been in class. So the last place I trained at has actually been a jujitsu school that has a kickboxing program as well. So I essentially dropped out of that just because I really wanted to get my life reorganized and lose some weight, because it's really hard to train jujitsu being as heavy as I am with some of the injuries I have. And I'm thinking, hey, if I go back to the Taekwondo school, they've added a lot of new things to it since I've been gone. So I've been gone for like just over 30, I don't know, 30 years maybe, because I tested to second. So there's like two levels at first and second. We call it recommended and decided. So it's kind of like a smaller step. So when you're going from first degree decided to second black. So I'm stuck at second degree recommended, and I've always kind of wanted to become a full fledged second degree, right? So that would make me a second degree decided, right? Anyways, over the past month, I've been reviewing the material, and it's been making me realize how much I need the exercise, because some of the things that come with Taekwondo is being able to hold your leg up, point it, and be able to throw a kick and then rechamber, as we call it, to be able to bring your leg back and be able to hold it, or be able to hold your leg up to. This is a good example. I'm going to show you here something that I can't do anymore. So I've tested over this when I was a red belt, because I did get my black belt, right? So being able to throw a roundhouse kick, rechamber, and throw a side kick without losing your balance. So that's what Taekwondo is known for, is teaching how to be a good kicker, like being able to throw multiple kicks, being able to kick high, and being able to do flying kicks is what Taekwondo is known for. And I'm not really the best, I don't really have the best body type to be a flying kicker, but it's still a great place to go get some exercise. Now, some time ago, before I went to the jiu-jitsu class, I went over to a place that teaches a type of kempo that's more to the karate side. And I was really hoping it was going to be like the kempo I studied in Florida. I really liked it. It was more like a wushu kempo that comes from the Parker system. They were calling it Tracy kempo, but I'm thinking that, same thing. And so I really liked that kind of kempo. I was going to get my black belt and teach it if I could, but that instructor moved to Ohio, and I moved to Denver, so I went to Denver and did kung fu instead. So, anyways, going into kung fu, it seems like the other arts kind of laugh at taekwondo because it's not a really good fighting style, and it seems to be missing a lot of stuff that other styles have, and so I think the people that do, that are building the curriculum with the American Taekwondo Association. I don't know if they changed that to something else, but they're called ATA. And ATA had like a set of forms and things that you test over, and they really didn't like to see their students going off and studying other things. And so I was kind of starting to be a wanderer, and I was kind of straddling coming to Taekwondo and going to Kempo at the same time. And so I was going over to Ron's house to learn Kempo, and he kind of taught standing there in his boxers with a cigarette in one hand and a beer in the other in his backyard. So from very commercial and straightforward, we wouldn't want anything above G rated going on there, but at Ron's house it was definitely way past G rated, going in the wrong direction. So I went from one extreme to the other. But at his house I also learned extremely valuable knowledge there, and it's what pointed me in the direction of uh, Shaolin Kung Fu because what I learned from Ron ultimately was that there are as many styles as there are masters, and that's where all these different forms of martial arts are coming from. That's why in Asia they have so many types of kung fu. There's more than one kind of taekwondo. There's more than one kind of karate, and maybe they're all using the same material. Even like karate systems all have this about the same material, but each master teaches it out a little differently, and you pretty much end up training the way he thinks you should train. So, for example, if we're going to Parker Kempo, so what they're doing is they're trying to be like, okay, you should just learn from everything you can. In their case, they had a lot of karate and kung fu available, so that's where they learned it from, you know. And so ultimately, if you're doing that system of training, you're just learning to think like that guy thought you should train. And in a roundabout way, that's how I feel about going to ATA Taekwondo. Is you're ultimately learning to train how that master thought you should train. And some of his ideas are probably better than other masters. Like there's a type of taekwondo that's taught out. They use forms that are called teget. Like when you're a white belt, you start out with this. I forget what they call it, but like, so a lot of schools are using that system. But the master we're under, Grandmaster H.U. Lee, developed his own system of taekwondo, and it's way more fun than all the other systems. In fact, I think he brought his family into it, so like maybe his brothers and cousins that share the same last name, like so they had a guy named G.K. Lee, for example. I think if I got that correct, went off and created his own branch of taekwondo, and you know it looks like they're showing some good techniques, you know how to shoot off rapid triple punches and everything, but the forms really suck compared to H.U. Lee's material. So it's like if they were songwriters, you know, let's say we're all playing in the same playing style. Well, this guy's songs are better than his songs, even though they seem to have some good riffs here and there. It seems like his overall compositions are better. So I think, you know, it's kind of silly, you know, to see these guys go off and try to create a copycat style and all this stuff. So it's like really, you know, you end up just kind of learning what that master has to teach. So we're kind of learning from the book of Master H.E. Lee if we're going here. But what makes traditional kung fu different than all this newer stuff that is more like you're really learning a master's style, you know, right? So what they think you should train on because it works for them so well, and so they, you know, they promote what they like and what they work on, and what they think you should train over to be just like them. But if you're learning traditional kung fu, which I found in Denver, so it was kind of cool. I went to Denver and I thought it was like the jackpot, you know, because I went around and some kung fu schools had a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but this school had everything, and that's what I was looking for. Because what Ron made me aware of is it all comes from Shaolin, all that Asian stuff. They're all part of Shaolin in one way or another, like karate. You know, they take a big influence from White Crane, for example. So that's where we get that really open-handed. That's very much bird style, having your hands open like this, you know. And that seems very exotic to a Westerner because our concept of fighting is you should make a fist, you know. Not. What the heck is this, you know? So we think of karate. And then Taekwondo, its ancestry is related to Tang Soo Do and possibly a little bit of karate coming together there because where they're located. And Tang Soo Do, so every place has its own fighting. You know, every place there's people, they know how to fight a little bit, and so there's probably something already there. Kind of like in Japan, there's already something there. And so when they took a kung fu influence, it's like karate is basically kung fu being done by Japanese people because of the way they think and how their culture is run. And so it's sort of limited compared to Kung Fu itself, because if you think of China, it's a big country with a long history. Kung Fu is a very big topic, because, I mean, there's not just one style of Kung Fu, there's many styles. It's a very broad topic. And then in Japan, strangely enough, as small as that place is, has a lot of kinds of karate. And that's, again, because of all the different masters. And then in Korea, some of these masters were trying to put together a system that the military could use. So, you know, in traditional martial arts, it takes years and years to really get to learn how to fight because they want to make sure you're a good person, you know, that you come and you're diligent and you do what they ask and you're a good person to teach this stuff to. So we really want to trust. So hopefully, the people we enlist in the military that are learning from Taekwondo. So what Taekwondo does is it takes the traditional martial arts and tries to simplify it in such a way that you can learn it quickly. So in a roundabout way, it should provide a type of accelerated learning. Because here's the general thing I'm learning, like my Kempo teacher really helped me to see, is we want to start out with hard style, which just inevitably has been the case, is that the earliest martial arts is just going to be grappling, and where that comes from is just going at it. So people probably just, we're going to have a grappling match and we're just going to go at it. That's just, people just, you take two people and let them fight without any martial arts training. They're going to know you should make a fist and swing and hit, and and it's not going to be proper technique, but it's still going to hurt, and they're going to grab each other. And then when you add science to that, that's where we come up with a martial art, when we start to make it a scientific thing where we can define exactly what we're doing, and do them correctly. So you're more efficient and functional. Then it becomes a martial art. So the most fundamental thing to martial arts is going to have to be things like wrestling. And I'm pretty sure, we've always hit each other. So boxing itself, like when we look at Western boxing, is something that's been around a long time. So it's like really an old thing, but it's evolving. So like, for example, I was watching a guy explain how in old-fashioned boxing, we used to fight a little more sideways, but like the modernization is starting to fight more like this. So even boxing is kind of going through evolution. Jiu-jitsu, we've seen it evolving through Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and now it's coming up to the United States, and it's evolving up here, And so in my course of study, I went from being in a semi-modern system like Taekwondo, and then I went to Kempo for a while. But then I felt like by going to the Asian, to the Shaolin Kung Fu, it's like I was going back in time, and becoming more of a martial historian. And kind of that's what I wanted to do, is I really wanted to get to the root of it. Because what I was saying, comparatively to like a master style, and you're learning to train the way this master thinks you should train, Shaolin is more like trying to preserve, uh, an ancient artifact. We don't really want to change the story. We want to see if we can keep that story the same way it was. And so that way we have preserved material that goes back as far as like the 600 AD, that type of thing. So that's what we were supposedly getting when we saw, like, in at my Shaolin class, seeing, tiger and bird. If it's not the exact form, at least it should have the exact type of movement in it. So you can experience what they've trained over. And so, we'll always tell you, when you're coming to Shaolin, if you really want to be a good fighter, then you got to join an MMA class. But not that we're not going to teach you any good fighting skills. It's more a great place to learn martial history. So think about what's going on with the European martial arts. We call that historical European martial arts. Well, similarly, traditional Shaolin is, uh, you know, a historical martial art where, we're not learning a master style. We're not learning to train how, Master Tay thought you should train, and we're not learning to train how the teachers in Denver, Master Dave and Sharon, aren't telling us what they think. If anything, we're really trying to hang on to like what they had. Now we are modifying it to the extent that there is some of their, what you call, their influence. So the recent masters have influenced how we train, because we don't train like they did at the Shaolin Temple. They got abolished, and these masters had to run for it. And when they went where they went, like our masters went to Indonesia, they trained really hard. Most people won't stay and train like that, if we're trying to, take their money, get them to join. So we train in a relaxed and leisurely way, and we know that. Now, some people come in and they train really hard. They're very athletic and they do really well. Other people, kind of middle of the road, and some people have just always sucked at Kung Fu. But, my Taekwondo teacher back in Key West had a little joke about that. He said some white belts come in and they're like the ugly duckling of Taekwondo, but then once they do get their black belts, eventually they do have the potential to become good martial artists. So that may or may not be true. Some people may have a general sense of martial arts. Some people may be very talented. So, that's kind of where, being in martial arts over these years it teaches you to respect other people, because you start to understand, the whole learning process, like where some people are gifted in one way and not so much in another, that type of thing. But I've seen students that they almost seem like you just can't teach them Kung Fu, and you almost just can't teach them Taekwondo. But, we always tell people to persevere, because even if you suck at it, like if you came to class and trained all the time, you're going to get way tougher than you used to be. You're not going to be the same lazy bones you used to be. Anyways, back to where I'm going with Taekwondo is, I kind of have a different world view, just because I've been looking for, what's at the core of the Asian martial arts. And even more recently, I've been, enjoying watching videos and looking for history. Why do we have these gis that they wear? Why do we have these belts that they wear? And so my little joke about Shaolin, for example, is that it's yoga boxing, because we have a Vedic influence. We have, the guy that came from India, they call him Dharma, came from India. And with that, some of the training that's similar to yoga that we do, it shows in how we stand and we move in our Shaolin Kung Fu. And so, when you step out and do your long forms, for example, you step out so your legs are like flat on top. But then in Taekwondo, I remember them telling us, we don't really want you to train like that. That's sort of an extreme form of training, and it might be good for what it is, but we train in a slightly higher stance. So maybe your thighs are held at about 45 degrees if you're in a front stance or middle stance, Anyways, so what makes Taekwondo an evolution in martial arts? Okay, so these guys, we generally start with a hard style, wherever we come from. If we're talking about wrestling or striking, it's all being able to find the strength to hit real hard, break and destroy. And then as you evolve, then you may come up with something that's similar, like to Aikido or Tai Chi, And that's why those things don't work, because you can't just take someone and teach them those things. Those things are a product of mastery. Someone that has been doing hardstyle a long time, those are the people that eventually develop these soft styles like Tai Chi and all that stuff. But then it comes full circle. You see what I'm saying? So even my Kempo teacher helped me to understand this process is you go from hard to soft to hard again, because then they help to teach each other. So like at a good Kung Fu school like the one I come from, they let us see the hard style. You're going to survive on that hard style. Being able to knock someone out and then the fight in less than a second is how we're going to survive. Maybe having to kick their knees and, So, but when you've trained in a really long time, that same fight could have been resolved less violently. Maybe you could have just tossed them to the ground with a good Tai Chi move and make them give up early, So you become less violent the more you train. See, that soft fist is more like if somebody was throwing that same attack, maybe as a white belt or a green belt, I might have just blocked the attack and tried to punch him in the throat. Maybe as a master, I might take that same thing and just kind of help him to the ground, So we just, he's going that way. Let's just help him through here. Let him decide to quit fighting after I threw him around a few times, That's when you become more of a master. So, but then it comes full circle. So now the people who are developing Taekwondo, they're taking that hard style, and then had probably seek counsel from the higher arts. So the higher arts are the internal arts. So in Korea, you can tell that whole country likes Taoism, right? Just look at the flag they have, And so of course, there's the Vedic influence that gives us the karate style looking, kung fu, karate, etc. All that stuff where you're moving really long-wise and long deep stances, where it looks like yoga. Because in yoga, we talk about warrior pose. You go down, thighs flat on top, and you do these movements here. And you turn your hip, you turn your foot, just like Kung Fu and yoga, doing that warrior pose. So it's been my little joke. It's like you're taking the martial arts and combining it with yoga. So it's good for what it is, but if we're really training for yoga, for the warrior. Katas are like training for the warrior. So it gives you the strength and flexibility you need, and it helps. We use nice, big, exaggerated movements in Shaolin to really help you to internalize those movements. Because, in a real fight, everything's kind of a blur, There's really not as much form. Anyways, what's happening in stuff like Taekwondo, or what should ideally be happening, like, say, you ran into somebody that really had good Taekwondo, it would be an effective martial art. It's just that, a lot of schools, it's a recreational and leisurely form of martial arts training. It has the spirit of the military, so we have to stand at attention, and they're like, yes, sir, and all this type of stuff. So that's one thing that comes with the Taekwondo culture, is it has the military flavor, because it was supposed to be designed so people could learn quickly. And so what's happening here is we're letting our understanding of internal arts influence the soft arts, influence the hard arts. So ideally, what would be happening, say, the Taekwondo masters, they're coming out of the world of Tang Soo Do and that type of training, and they're integrating what they're getting from the Chinese martial arts. Say, if they're integrating what we get from the Taoist side of the Chinese martial arts, that would entail, Tai Chi, Bakwa, and Xingyi. And I'm really seeing the Xingyi. And I think this is true in all of these arts, that, like, for example, we use this kind of movement in our farm block or a low block. It might be just straight up bam. But the greater expression that we see in our Xingyi shows us the whole energy. And so if we can internalize that energy in the instance that we're fighting here, and all of a sudden we need to bring out that inner farm block, maybe that's the idea of learning and including this. So that's where we get our power. For example, these type of blocks is the way we gather before we strike. That's very much like Xingyi. Or when we punch, say in Taekwondo, when you start out, the first form we learn is called Sangang 1. And so it has you stepping forward in such a way that your feet are both face forward, your hips are face forward, and you're just coming straight through without turning your body at all whatsoever. So in Taekwondo, we throw this block, and everything's exaggerated with the hands. That's the funny thing. We're going to exaggerate our hands, okay, on a chamber and a block. It's like a striking block, and then come through. And see, out of habit, I turn my hips out because I've been in Shaolin. The older arts would probably have a step with our hip out and turn our hip in, like Kempo or Kung Fu. And then maybe as I kick through, I'd probably come through and just block with my hip out this way, and then come through and punch with my hip out this way. That would be the difference. So that's where it's kind of funny, Taekwondo's kind of taking away the turning your hip to the angle. And we're learning to, for example, keep it all right here. Like, you use your hip, but you don't really change the angle or your foot position. So that's what we're giving our white belts. But then in the second part of the white belt form, like I'd be maybe doing that section and then turn the other way. Then I'm coming bladed, so I'm facing that way and attacking this way. So I might be blocking something out of the way and coming through side kick. And then, so that's where we might see the element of water, the sideways movement, because we're using side-to-side kind of movements, the side kick and the side hand. But then stepping through to punch, okay, I was talking about that exact thing, the punching versus other martial arts where you turn your hip, especially boxing, really turns your hip and shoulders. So we're going to internalize that same energy without turning our hip, very similar to the element of wood. When we're talking the 5-element Xingyi, we do something where it's a vertical punch, and we keep everything kind of square, and we deliver the punch like this. That's what I was going to say. That's the similarity. And see, might be the idea of why in this instance, we don't turn our hips. That might be one of those Xingyi type of influences onto Taekwondo. And so, like, once you've seen the 5 elements of Xingyi, by the way, and that's why I did another video introducing you to the 5 elements, is like you start to see it in everything, or where it might be combined, So for example, we see the upward block, we see the outer block. So once I've seen fire, this is what it looks like in Xingyi, and a lot of times Kung Fu has a block and a punch. Well, Taekwondo and Kempo is more block punch, or karate might have the same element of separating the two. So there's like a few different ways this is being expressed, where you might block and then punch. But once you internalize it, so we're exaggerating everything. So in Taekwondo, we will reach and punch. But once we get good at it, it should be able to just throw punches without. That's why, we see Bruce Lee talking about that 1-inch punch, right? Being able to just be right there. That's the advanced martial arts, be able to hit like that, see? So if we're fighting here, that's where I might be using a long guard. I might use that long guard to see if I can get him past your guard. I should be able to throw a good, powerful punch without really having to do a lot of movement. So that's why we want to be able to internalize our power. So if if you're getting the right message from Taekwondo, it should be an accelerated path to being able to internalize your power for the sake of getting more improved hard style. So I think we've even said that in Shaolin that really one helps the other. You know, your soft style is going to get a great deal of help from learning hard style. You're going to master hard style a lot faster. You're going to see results much faster in hard style than you would Tai Chi. Tai Chi is going to take, you know, decades of training, but you do it anyways. You know, keep going to your Tai Chi, and then it will teach your hard style to be more powerful, because what you're doing is learning to be relaxed until you're on impact. If you're throwing a good hard strike, that's where the hard style happens during the strike. So it should be soft and pliable. Now here's another thing I want to point out is beautiful concepts coming from Jiu-Jitsu and Kung Fu. What makes them different? Jiu-Jitsu, we say, is the soft way, and it may interpret just because it's grappling versus striking, but really also to be flexible minded, to, like, you know, you're trying to pull a move off and it's not working, so you're not just going to force it, you're going to do the next possible good movement. See, well, we'd have the same mentality in Kung Fu and everything else. You should also think that way in other martial arts. Maybe I wanted to come in and punch and kick, but the person moved around, so I'm going to be flexible and change my plan, you know. So that, and I also want to be soft too, so you learn to be softer and softer as you go. And I heard our jiu-jitsu teacher from Korea come over to SBG and give me the confirmation I needed. He said the way your jiu-jitsu should be practiced is more like Tai Chi or more like Aikido. You really want to slow it down, find sensitivity, so no matter where you're at, if you're doing jiu-jitsu or Kung Fu, we always achieve that. And then so coming back to what Kung Fu means, Kung Fu is really Kung roughly translates to work, and Fu, I'm not quite sure how to interpret it, but probably with the sense of you know, perseverance, you know, with the idea of trying to reach mastery. So it's a type of work we do to achieve mastery. And so, you know, you want to be a good fighter, and so it's a path of mastery for someone who's becoming a good fighter, you know. That's what it means. So you want so I found come to find, you say jiu-jitsu and judo, man, that's some good Kung Fu. Might sound like blasphemy to them, but you know, in a Kung Fu, similarly, we want to achieve the state of Aikido, we want to achieve the state of universal harmony. Jiu-jitsu, we want to be flexible minded, and we want to use Kung Fu and make everything, you know, you're not just working hard, but you're working with the intention of refinement and self-mastery. And then now when we come to Taekwondo, it's just the art of hands and feet, but really it's part of Kung Fu, in that it's a path of mastery to the refinement of our hard style. And so it's kind of interesting. So it's coming full circle. Hard style, the soft, and then Taekwondo should embody a little bit of the internal arts. And you see it as we go up in belt. It becomes more and more Shaolin. And so since I've been off the Shaolin and I've seen weapons and internal arts, I've come back to the Taekwondo system, the ATA system, and they've added weapons and other training. I'm thinking, hey, you know, I might really enjoy seeing their version of all these techniques. Well, anyways, the difference between Taekwondo and Kung Fu is, again, Kung Fu is more like a tradition. We're not really trying to do what someone thinks we should do. It's kind of like learning classical music. You really wouldn't want to change, you know, Beethoven or something. You want to see if you can replicate that. Whereas MMA should be like, you know, modern rock, you know, like it should be, in my case, techno-industrial, right? It's what I find natural to me, what works for me, you know, using your best knowledge of principles and concepts that apply to the martial arts. For example, if I go to Taekwondo and I help either teach it or I perform it, demo it, test over it, that's all about being able to memorize the movements as they teach it. And then if I were to jump over to a Kung Fu class, you know, I certainly want to demonstrate the material like it was Taekwondo. I'll demonstrate it like it's Kung Fu. And here's the crazy irony, I wanted to share this before the video's over, is I had a really vivid dream, and I've had dreams over the years about visiting Kung Fu and visiting Taekwondo, but this was a vivid dream that I was at a Taekwondo class. I felt that I had been training there that day, and I was, you know, getting my things and leaving, and, you know, wishing the instructor goodbye. I don't know if it was Mr. Lilly. You know, Mr. Lilly has been one of my main instructors down in Key West, and so I was dreaming that I was at his class, and, you know, bowing out and taking my bag with all my gear in it. And so I go up the street a few blocks and go into that class, and it's my Kung Fu class that I trained in Denver, you know, with Master David Sherry. And so That's why I think this is an interesting coincidence because then I started seeing the advertisement for the ATA school opening up here and started thinking maybe I should go over there and train. So I've been going into YouTube and watching videos and catching up on my material. And they got a bunch of stuff that looks like it has a Shaolin influence, you know. So in a roundabout way, you know, going to this class with my Shaolin background is going to be helpful. I'll pick up that material. And I said, hey, you know, I told the instructor, I said I might as well invite him if he wants to take classes with me online and get kung fu since that's where you know, this taekwondo system seems to be looking to Shaolin to get more material and insight to improve their training system. So anyways, I might go on Monday and sign up for a 2-week trial period. So if you get the 2-week trial period, then you get, you know, a discount for your monthly fee. And maybe if that works out okay, then I'll sign up month to month. Just get in there and try to at least act as if my next goal is testing to second degree decided. See if that'll help me do something about that belly. So yeah, I went in and I demonstrated some of my Taekwondo. This is what your white belt form looks like when you're in Taekwondo. Briefly, our Chumbi stance is like this. And everything's kind of exaggerated, like I was saying. You should hear snap and pop. So that's why I like this shirt. This was given to me by my friend Pam. It was her son's shirt. I don't know if it was the wrong size. So I call it part of my backwoods gi. It's my backwoods karate gi because I love the way you get that snap and pop. And so check it out, my South Park shirt. You know how I always like to wear my hat just like these guys do, right? So that's the kind of, I love this show. That's the kind of sense of humor I have. And you know, the only reason I'm wearing this pink hat is it fits so nicely. And you know, Rosie's daughter Sherry knitted this for me. And it's not too bad a color, but you know, I wear this to hide my hair. I don't really like the way my hair looks, so I can hide under it. Anyway, so this is how I train until I'm too hot. Then the hat comes off. Then the jacket comes off. But it's kind of funny to think this is my, you know, first thing in the morning. You know, I haven't really, you know, dressed for the day. And these are the kind of pants I like for pajamas. And you know how we talk about your karate gi looks like pajamas, right? So anyways, it's almost like I'm in my pajamas here. This is how I like to wake up, you know. I've had something to eat. I can't train on an empty stomach, but I'm not too full. And our white belt material is really exaggerated, but we want to keep our hips straight in and get that snap and power. So that's kind of like your shingy, wow. And stepping through, keeping my hips square actually, and getting that snap and power. So if I was going the other way, I'd come back and then there's this inner forearm block. So they have us do it like this. So kind of thinking how Kung Fu teaches us everything seems to trace the arm, you know? Taekwondo's kind of has some weird nuances. Like it's like making an equal sign here, and then we should just kind of rotate our hands together. So now in old style or traditional style, when we talk about, say, punching, for example, we step out to guarding. We kind of use something like this. You know, your block should be under wherever they are, you know, should be coming to the outside of the back hand, you know. So that's where Taekwondo's kind of got some weird nuances. So like, say we punch, our hands kind of come palm up at the same time as they cross. And then, so they kind of take turns twisting. It's like 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's not really pulling it back first. It's that it twists in, because this could be a hook parry, drawing back, for example. But in Taekwondo, we just flip them together. So it's kind of, I think maybe the idea is it makes it a faster action. So maybe that's why. So we're not too worried about if we're parrying or anything. We're just trying to throw punches. There's no issue about parrying. And then on, but the high block, the way they're teaching the white belt, you know, so you step out like this, and it's almost like that's too exaggerated. I feel like it should just be, you know, as you're coming out, should just really be right here, you know. So, and it should just be, you know, you really shouldn't have to point it, but that's where it's like too over exaggerated. So sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I really want to, you know, teach this out. So I just might be, you know, what you call go in there for the exercise and to catch up on all the other material. So like, okay, so we're going to come from that equal shape to get a good inner forearm block. And then that side kick, side hand. Kind of makes sense, you know, it is a good sequence. You know, maybe I'm kind of chasing somebody down, moving in a sideways fashion. And if I hit them with that side kick like that, bam, they're going to like they're gonna buckle and they're gonna walk right into either an elbow or a side hand, and then I might have another opponent and I'm just stepping right through to that person, and then we go to our black belt material, and it's a little bit different, you know, like they really emphasize more on this sort of bringing the other hand back before hitting out kind of stuff. So it's like being able to like emulate what they want taught out, you know. So if I go into Shaolin, but if I go to Taekwondo, so those are the adaptations, being able to follow along wherever you train to get a taste of what they intend to teach out. So like again, if you know you're someone like me straddling, you know, say being a Taekwondo student and being a Kung Fu student, it's not always a good idea. It's better to just sort of immerse yourself in one at a time, you know. And but going to Jiu-Jitsu is like a whole nother animal. So if you think about what Taekwondo is versus Jiu-Jitsu, for example, ideally like in sparring and competition, we're isolating the ability to only block or strike to fight somebody. There's no sweeps or takedowns or grabbing allowed. And their rule set, which is exactly the opposite of grappling and jiu-jitsu or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like no hitting, no slamming. You can only use grappling, and that's it. And so you isolate that area of training. So we get confused about what's jiu-jitsu, what's taekwondo. What's actually going on is we're just grappling and nothing else. And then over here, we're just striking and nothing else. But then somewhere it's going to meet the middle. And that's why people love Muay Thai. So it teaches you how to add in grappling, how to grab, hook on, and kick people while you're holding them steady. See, so there's gonna, and in the long run, that's why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teaches kickboxing in, as like they teach it as an offering to your students. Like, you know, since we don't teach striking in Jiu-Jitsu, you should go and take some judo and some striking to get a better stand-up game. So these are just basically another area of training. And so that's what Taekwondo is a form of kickboxing. It's just an area of training where you're just learning to fight with nothing but your hands and feet. So if it was a multiple opponent situation, that would be ideal. You probably wouldn't have a lot of time to use grappling. You know, if there's like a few people there and I had one in a really nice rear naked choke, you know, it's not going to do me any good because my hands are tied. So that's where, you know, that's not applicable. Things like jiu-jitsu are good if you're alone with somebody, you're just trying to control them and save them from getting an injury, get ER injury. When you learn in Taekwondo, you got to think about what it is. You know, it's hyper-violence. If you're kicking somebody like, bam, and it breaks their ribs, you know. So it comes back to the rule of do unto others what you do for yourself. So when you think about striking, it's a little harder to train and see the realistic outcome. Where jiu-jitsu, wrestling, you can totally see that, okay, if you follow these steps, this brings a person under your control. This, if you carry through, you know, if you can get on somebody, get them in a Americana, get them in a Kimura, and make them tap out. It's like, you know, just think they're telling me, hey, you know, if you would have just carried through on that, it would have been effective. They wouldn't have been able to escape it. Where striking is a really different animal to train in. So that's where you have to be honest with yourself. Like, this is as far as it takes you. So that's where a good Taekwondo school is going to say, hey, you know, we're going to add a little bit of jiu-jitsu and maybe Krav Maga or whatever and street fighting to help you to deal with all the alternatives to when you're not in the ring. So that's why I was going to say I have a little bit of respect for ATA for doing that. And so at least it's going to be fun going if I enroll and train there to see what I've been missing over the last 30 years, right? So like I was saying, I dropped out of Taekwondo to train at the Kempo school. Because the guy at Taekwondo was telling me, I was coming to class with my hair like a punk. They don't really want people looking like that. But the guy that I was training with Kempo was like, he kind of had the same thought. He wouldn't want his daughter, his mom, his wife to have that haircut either, right? But he liked me and practically trained me because he thought I was a good enough student and I learned it so much. And he actually influenced my future by introducing me to Kung Fu, giving me precepts on learning, you know. So at the end of the day, as a martial artist, you are the artwork. So I always come back to the idea of Jodote or Jodi style, you know, that I want to create my own system of fighting that works for me. But, you know, as a participant in a class, you know, I will follow along and do Taekwondo as Taekwondo is done. And if I come to Shaolin Kung Fu, I'm going to do Shaolin as Shaolin has done, and participate and experience that flavor of training. And so let's see what happens. This is where you know, a major turning point starting on Monday could be a major turning point in my life, and then I will come back with more updates. And so, anyways, what my kung fu looks like is just a little more loose. I like to fight with open hands more, and if I'm gonna punch, I'm gonna form the punch as I'm striking in. And I've been working with more of a shingy punch. I like a loosely cupped fist. It's kind of like a monkey fist, is what I like to call it. And so there are certain things I might do differently in my own sense of fighting that they don't teach in other martial arts to train at. And I'm incorporating, so like you don't really want to make a Frankenstein of a martial art and be like, oh, I like this here, I like this here. So inevitably what you should get if you're a cross-trained martial artist like me is seeing what's always true. And when you see what's always true, that's where you can create your own way of fighting that is effective, because there are things work and don't work. So you might become the researcher and the scientist. You're going to test out what works and what don't work. So that's what Kempo teaches us to do. That's what Krav Maga teaches us to do, or Jeet Kune Do, and as well as MMA, is what works and don't work when we try it, and why not. And so you want to be honest about what you know and what you don't know. So otherwise we have a lot of people we call are doing fantasy martial arts or bullshit martial arts, if not bullshido. And we got a lot of people that get your black belt and they're just nothing but a paper tiger. So yeah, so the difference between Taekwondo and Kung Fu. Oh, I can't remember what it looks like. Let me see. Here we go. This is what I want. Bam. Kung Fu is like learning, like the short forms they teach us. They're like I call learning to walk and chew gum at the same time. So this is what you're getting as a white belt. I think in a nice deep front stance, you're gonna block across and hit out, block down, block across and hit out. And check this out. When I kick through, I'm gonna kick and hit with a hammer fist. I think and block high. Right? And a lot of people can't do that. That's so different than Taekwondo. And even though Taekwondo is the one that's known for its kicking, it's in Shaolin Kung Fu that we're a white belt and we're learning bam, bam, throwing those double front kicks. And then when you get your yellow belt, you start to see the animal forms, and like, here's the difference too. So the yellow belt form has one where you get like this and you jump all the way off the ground, and then later on in the form, you like do like a kick where you're kicking behind and side kick without setting your foot down, and you turn around, double front kick, and so you'd be surprised how much more kicking you learn in Kung Fu than we get in Taekwondo. All right, you guys, I really wanted to share about the excitement of possibly taking Taekwondo and doing something about that belly, because the black belt that don't train is the black belt that's just a fat old black belt and should almost take it off and get me a new white belt. Anyways, you guys have a good day, and I will see you next time.